Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Welcome, listeners, and thanks for joining me. I'm Bryan O'Rourke, your host of the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. Man, it's still hot in August. Down here in New Orleans, we've got a few hurricanes around, but thankfully they're going to miss the city. I'm so glad you joined us. We have a terrific guest today. For those of you that know of him, Sal Pellegrino, who started his career in the 70s with his own health club. He talks about it on the podcast. And then working his way up through Stairmaster, working for Core Health and Fitness, working with Precor, Les Mills, ABC Financial, and others. The guy's got to be one of the most respected and reputable people in the industry space, especially on the vendor side. And so I'm very delighted, having known him for 12 or 13 years now, to have him. So I hope you're going to find his insights very valuable. We're going to talk about his terrific weekly video that he does every Sunday and more. But before we get started, listen, do me a favor. Check out the IHRSA Innovation Summit. That is Thursday, September 17th. In the show notes, you're going to see the details. You know, if you want to sponsor or attend, it's a terrific event. Some really fantastic speakers, roundtables, education sessions. So I really hope you will check that out. And another shout out, sitting on the IHRSA board, we've had the privilege of appointing an interim CEO in Brent Darden. I'm very proud of the organization and Brent's involvement with staff and the board and leadership for some momentous change you're going to see arriving with IHRSA in the coming months, as we've all gone through some struggling times, some difficulties with the pandemic. So please give Brent a shout out if you're able to. Otherwise, don't hesitate to contact me directly, Bryan K. O'Rourke at Gmail, or at Bryan K. O'Rourke to follow me if I can do anything to be of help to you. And so without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Sal Pellegrino. Well, listeners, as I told you in the intro, I don't know why I didn't have this guy on sooner, because I've known him, for a very long time now, well over a decade. And, he doesn't require an introduction, although I gave him one before he's on this recording. Sal, thanks for making time today for our listeners and the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Bryan. It's an honor, and I was thrilled that you asked me to join you.
Well, listen, first off, kudos for your weekly update. What is it, 17 sessions you've done now, I think? And it's followed by literally tens of thousands of people on LinkedIn and Facebook. Every Sunday I see it, and the amount of noise, people love it. What got you to do that? Because it's really been a phenomenon.
Well, Bryan, it's really funny. I'm just in awe of the response that I've had, and the best part of my week. I put a lot of time in it, as you can imagine. But the best part of it is reading the comments and hearing the texts and the emails that I get and the phone calls. But it's week 17, week 18 is coming up, and I'm saying to myself, man, I hope these webinars never stop, because my content will get thin, So, but it's been terrific. I will tell you what really motivated me to do it. Soon as COVID shut down, all the big clubs and all the states started shutting down, I immediately thought back to September 11th. Obviously, I was in New York when that happened. And I remember the whole industry came to a grinding halt. And I felt so helpless that I said, what am I going to do? And I just wanted to call my customers to make sure they were okay. And I said, you know what, I'm going to apply that same process to this, because I had no idea how vast this was going to be, how long it's going to be. And did any of us think that 5-6 months of some states shutting down? So I decided to be a really good citizen and share information to all my clients and friends in the industry. And listening to the webinars, which were great. I mean, I think the first one was Club Industry, Club Solutions, IHRSA, Rex. Oh my God, I mean, the groups, yourself with Fitzy, they've been fabulous. And I just said, who's gathering all this information and who has time to do all these webinars? And so I thought it was a great time for personal development, and obviously work on making myself better and try to be a real good corporate citizen or an industry citizen to help out my clients. That's really what got it started. And, one other thing, I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Gitomer, and I was listening to one of his little Facebook cases, and he had a guest on, Bryn Tillman, and she said how to sell using video on LinkedIn. And I watched her 20 minutes. I went into the Pellegrino Fitness Institute, which is my home gym, right? And I put the camera on top and I just had a statement and I posted it. And I had about 800 views and I went, holy mackerel, it works. So, and then I came up with the, summarizing the webinar content, what I thought were the top takeaways. And so that's my Sal's top takeaways for the week. And that's where it started.
Well, I follow it, of course. And for the listeners that haven't, you can follow Sal on LinkedIn and on Facebook, of course, on Instagram, Sal Pellegrino. They are some of the leading people in the industry space, not just in the United States, but around the world. You've shared some stories with me about folks that have been watching this and then reach out to you and really need your help. And you've been able to do a lot for people. It's an amazing example of, what you can use technology for that can make a difference.
Right. Well, it's amazing to me. I just thought that I would get, 100, 200 views and, I'd make some of my current customers happy. And all of a sudden people start sharing it. And then the information that I'm getting from the UK and Australia and New Zealand, Budapest, Hungary, Asia. I mean, it just is just the power of technology. And it just absolutely was really breathtaking for me. And I was thrilled with it. And then more importantly, I've all of a sudden, I've known a lot of people, and now these industry consultants and these other groups and these other podcasts, I hate to say that I'm becoming relevant, but my name is getting out there, and all of a sudden people, oh, I know you, I listen to such and such every week, and hey, don't stop, it's really great. So I've really been overwhelmed by the response. I really have been, so I was thrilled with it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, Sal. Keep it up. I really enjoy it. I know a lot of other people do. It's convenient. It helps you kind of surmise a lot of information in a relevant way. So outstanding job. Now, think about it. I know you've been in the fitness industry for a very long time. You look like you're about 23. So, in your university studies, of course, at University of Miami and in Eastern Kentucky, where you got your master's degree, that's in the 70s. And then, of course, you had your own gym. You went to work for a number of well-known in the Stairmaster days. You've been with Les Mills, Pre-Core, ABC. You've been with Core. You had an extensive background, and a lot of people trust you. Looking back, did you ever imagine your career in this industry to become what it became?
No, Bryan, ever since I was 17 years old, I wanted to open up a gym. My father owned an Italian bakery. My whole family, brothers, uncles, aunts, everybody worked there. And I was expected to go to college to take it over, right? I mean, that was kind of what my game plan was, at least the family game plan. And I just knew I wanted to have a health club. And obviously, that turning an avocation into a vocation, very fortunate. And opening up a club when I was 22 years old, renting space from Jefferson Valley Racket Club. I have to make mention of David Swope because he really made my career happen. A wonderful man. He's opened the door for so many people in this industry. It's now called Club Fit. Two wonderful locations, but I have to give him credit because he really saw something in a young man and really helped me get started. And that understanding of being in, my timing was pretty good. Having an educational background, physical education background for that wave of fitness as it started. But I started out with Nautilus clubs, and I remember I heard of a thing called the life cycle. So I started putting life cycles in, and then, so it just was this wave of being, my timing was really good. And then I actually sold the club to David, and I started selling equipment, Nautilus and Stairmaster. And that's how I got into the supply side of the industry. But what really helped me, every sales opportunity, every delivery, every problem, I was a club owner first. And I knew that the key to this thing was having good products that stand on their own 2 feet. And number two is, you can't have a machine down for 2 days, because if you are, you're a lousy club operator. So that's always helped me, in terms of my reaction as a vendor. It's always helped me to get back to my roots as a club owner.
And since that time, and I think, you have such an amazing story, and I know there are many, many stories that you've told me over time. We can't squeeze them all in on this podcast, but, since you were in operations and then ultimately in sales, what has changed, if anything, around servicing customers, and how have you adapted yourself to that change in the last several decades?
Well, it's real interesting. I mean, I remember when I was selling Stairmaster, I don't know, I was probably employee number 8 or 10, it was a startup, and we just were a passionate group of people. We were not going to make that company fail. We had a great product. We knew we had a great product, but we didn't know what the heck we were doing. But I actually had an index card file, 1 to 31, and I would, fill it out. And that was my what I called my Italian LinkedIn back then, and I just, started with that, and boy, obviously Rolodex, and then all of a sudden we started doing quotes on a computer, and then once contact management came in, and we were early on in that in the early 90s. We had a really great, smart owner of Stairmaster who really invested heavily in technology, and so we had just an incredible database. And obviously, with great products, it really helped out. Kind of getting me into rely on some technology to help you understand your marketplace, your categories, and all that. So that was really, really helpful. The other thing is, once Salesforce came into CRMs, there's so much that you can do. But I think that every year I learned that the older I became, I had to be more relevant, and I had to compete more, because the young people coming in were so darn smart. And I think you always have to reinvent yourself. So I always tried to adapt to the change, adapt to technology, and use it as effectively as I could.
But I've seen that in your career, because we've known each other, I think 12, 13 years maybe. And, I always recall almost every year you reaching out, as you do to many people that are in your network, and say, hey, here's what my challenges are this year. What do you think about this? What should I do here? You always sought feedback, and I've watched you evolve your digital footprint, like what you've done recently with the video productions, with creating value for clients, posting stuff, connecting with people. There's still a lot of people in the B2B side that don't do that, which is really kind of surprising to me at times.
You know what? I don't understand it. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are still, not active on LinkedIn, or not watching the different various platforms. I've really watched my clients, and a lot of my clients are 50 and 60 years old, and guess what? They're big on Facebook. So of course I'm going to be present there, right? And then you have your LinkedIn, which is just like, oh my God, anytime I have a sales call, a customer visit, I'm looking up the people I'm meeting with, and there's nothing better to go in to be a little prepared. But I just think a lot of people, either they're stuck in their old ways, they are a little afraid of change, maybe that's it, or they just don't want to advance, or they're just holding on to a strategy that worked well for them 10 years ago. But I just think that's just a really short-sighted process. I really do. I think you have to adapt to change, and you have to use this and use technology very effectively. And it's been wonderful for me. I've been, every time I turn around, I stop and I look at my network and I go, holy, I remember when it was like 120 and now it's thousands. Yep. And it's really great. It's really terrific. I mean, I have fun with it. And, I think you helped me get on LinkedIn the first time. I have to give you that kudo. We were in some trade show in some hotel lobby somewhere, and you were telling me about LinkedIn. I go, what the heck is that, Bryan? But so thank you for that, because obviously it's been a huge platform for me in terms of successful selling. It really has.
You've done a great job with that. I'm just so impressed. Before I get to the next question, a comment I'd like to hear your thoughts on. Matthew on Escape Your Limits podcast, at the end of the year, we were talking about technology, and did a podcast with me, a video, and we're in Beverly Hills, and I don't know if you recall it, but he wanted to talk about tech. and want to talk a lot about it. We did, but I told them about, listen, it's really about trust, and tech's a cool tool around trust. That trust is becoming the most valuable commodity in the world today, and it's because it's such a polarized world. People are very skeptical, almost cynical. And what you're doing with your content is just building on your reputation, a trusted reputation. And for some people, I think it's harder to do that because you can't be focused on selling in the near term. You can't think about what's just in it for me. You have to think about what's in it for everyone else. And it's kind of a philosophical approach. And I think that's kind of a reflection of who you are. It's part of your DNA, so to speak. What do you think about that?
Well, I from the beginning of my career, from the time I was 22 years old selling memberships in Jefferson Valley, New York, people trusted me. People buy from those who they like and they trust. And I think as the career has evolved, when you can carry over those relationships, I have people that are buying from me today that bought from me 30 years ago, and that is, to me, is the ultimate compliment, that people have stayed with me with the brands that I sell, because you know what, I honestly won't sell them something if I wouldn't buy it myself. I really believe that you have to really want and believe in the product that you sell. And I think that transparency or trust is so critical, especially now more than ever, especially with social media. Oh my God, you can take a beating if you're trying to get over on somebody. That's for sure,
Yep, you're so right. Now let's shift a little bit to the COVID conversation. I know that New York Alliance, New York is finally opening up, Manhattan shortly. That's been a big challenge for those operators. I know a lot of people that are still suffering in California and in certain locations that are still not open. There are a number of venues, as you know. What is your spin and take on the COVID situation for the industry? In talking with your clients and colleagues, what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind, Brian, is with crisis comes opportunity. And when I saw the RSG group come in and buy golds, I as soon as I said that, I went, these are smart guys. I said, they're investing, and what a great time to come into the industry. I've had a number of discussions with some new people coming into the business. What a great time to negotiate a lease. What a great time to do tenant improvement. So I think this opportunity is really big. The other thing is, I think there's been an overcapacity in our industry for a very long time in every aspect, whether it be commercial health clubs, boutiques. I remember when I would speak with clients and we'd have 3 or 4 competitors in a 5-mile radius, and now there's 39, 45, 50, and it's just like, holy mackerel. So I think this kind of, culling of the herd, so to speak, is a good thing. And I know that I actually had a conversation with someone last week, and they picked up a number of memberships in one day because a small little provider went out of business. So whoever survives this, whoever's really engaged with their clients, whoever is really focused on their staff and on what's important to them, I think they're going to really, really do well. So I think 2021 is potentially a really great year for those who can survive this. And the other thing is, I think COVID has really accelerated the need for technology, and you know this more than anybody, right? So, watching people who did not have a streaming platform for Group X and who have adopted, and watching the clubs in California move their whole fitness centers outside the parking lots and pool decks and things. And I always am so impressed with how our industry is so darn resilient and so darn creative. It just amazes me. But you know what? Any of those players that are marginal, and if they were not well capitalized, they're not going to survive this. And no, I think there'll be a big gap. But like I said, those who survive will do very, very well.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. As painful as it is, it's a resetting of the industry space, and those that are very capable will win. They will do very well. And I think you're spot on. Well, Sal, I want to tell you, as I said in the introduction, how thankful I am for our relationship. You've always been such a kind friend and associate, and I always, I admire you and everything that you've done, and really value our professional and personal relationship. But I would, for the listeners, you've always given me grains of insight. And as I mentioned, one other thing at the beginning, we both come from families that own bakeries, which is kind of an interesting thing. It's easier for us to make bread at home than it has been for others in the last 6 months. So, but getting to my question, having prefaced it, what pearls of wisdom about the industry, about career, given your exemplary background, what pearls of wisdom would you share with our listeners that they should keep in mind for the years ahead?
You can't stop learning. I think if there's one thing that I've really focused on year after year, decade after decade. I think you just have to get better every year. Every year I always take the week off before Christmas as a vacation time. And then I come in the week between Christmas and New Year's and I say, okay, what did I screw up last year? What could I do better next year? How am I going to be a better, provider for my clients going in January? And it's been, I call it my reinvention, whatever. And the family used to always laugh at me when I would do this, but it was really a great thing. I think the other thing is, a lot of people, and I'm going to use this for, in selling. A lot of people that I go with, they're so focused on the short-term sale, they don't think about the long-term relationship, because I will not sell you something that in my heart of hearts, if you don't need it, I want to buy 40 treadmills, but you only need 20, those types of things. I think it's important that your customer walk away and trust you. I also think it's important to listen to others. A lot of people can't take constructive criticism. It's really hard, it was a great book for me when I read that. Instead of focusing on people's weaknesses, focus on their strengths. And what a great book. I remember at Precore 1.0, when I was there 13 years, obviously back, I'm in what's called the Boomerang Club now, because when you leave and you come back, you got a kick out of that. But, our whole company at the time, the president made us all read Strength Finders, and it was really great. The other thing, and this is having to do with COVID and our industry's response, this sharing of collective wisdom among competitors has been so fabulous. And I pray and I hope that this does not stop. I hope that if a vaccine comes out, that we don't go back to going in our little silos, because it's just fabulous. The industry's getting better. So I think that's really great. And the other thing is helping others. I don't know how many people have called me for jobs in the last 4 months, but trying to put talent A with this opportunity B has become really great and really important to me. And I love when someone calls me up and say, thank you so much for doing this. And you'll see it occasionally in the comments of my weekly takeaways. Someone will say something, oh my gosh, you really helped me, or I trust this guy, and that means a lot to me. Reputation management, I think that's another one, Brian, that's really great and really important. Is this industry is too small. You cannot, if you make a mistake, admit to it, fix it. It's a great opportunity for you to show your client how good you are. So I think that's really, really important. And then be part of the community. Watching all these state alliances come together, it's way cool. And I think that was a mistake that our industry made. We did not have that reputation with policymakers and local governments, and I think it's really critical. And I think that's our biggest opportunity, is that wellness or well-being launch for us going forward. And I think that's really the best part of our industry, or what I think is the most exciting part of our future.
Sal Pellegrino, always a pleasure. Thanks for making time for our audience and sharing your insights and thoughts. And in the show notes, everybody, you're going to see Sal's links so that you can, find him if you don't already know. Sal, I really appreciate you making time again, and thanks so much.
Bryan, thank you. It's a pleasure, and thank you for all that you do for our industry. We really appreciate you. You're the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Sal.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, brianko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.